All right. In the examples here, what we're going to do is we're going to work through the steps to solve a quadratic by the process called completing the square. Now, typically, this process would be used on problems that do not factor. Now, the first problem technically factors, so we would normally not use it for that. But I'd like to start off with one where the numbers come out very nice. So we're going to do this first problem by completing the square. But again, traditionally, I would do this problem by a process called factoring. Okay? So let's do completing the square. So if you're going to solve by completing the square, first thing is you need to make sure the coefficient of x squared is equal to 1. That must happen. The coefficient of x squared has to be 1. And currently it is. It's 1x squared. So we've got that satisfied. Then you need to make sure the equation is in this format. Okay? You want the x squared term and the x term on the left side and the whole number on the right side. And this particular problem here, we have that. We have x squared plus 8x on one side, whole number on the other side. Then we're ready to complete the square. Steps 3 through 5 is the process where we're going to actually complete the square, which is the process we did up here in the previous video. Okay? So what we're going to do, we're going to have our x squared plus our 8x, but then we're going to have that third term that we came up with in the previous video. And then, so I'm going to leave a space for that. And then that's going to equal 9. But then I'm going to have to compensate for whatever I do on this side of the equation, I'm going to have to do on that side of the equation. So now let's go through the steps. So we're going to take half of b. So we're going to take half. Now this is the b. The b is attached to the x. So half of 8, which is going to get you 4. Okay. And then you're going to square what you just got there. So you're going to square that, and that gets us 16. Okay? So now you're going to add that result that we just got to the x squared plus bx term. So that's this. So that's b plus 16. And to the other side of the equation, because whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side. Okay? Now, we've completed the square. We're done with steps 3 through 5. So now step 6 is factor the perfect square trinomial. So this should factor into something squared. Now I'm not going to write it as two sets of parentheses. I'm just going to go right to one binomial squared, one set of parentheses squared. So we know the first term times the first term's got to get you the first term, so that's got to be x. Then, because the signs are all positive, obviously the sign needs to be addition. And then this term times itself has to get you 16, so that's 4. Okay. Now this side we can just clean up. 9 plus 16 is 25. So we've factored the perfect square trinomial. Now in step 7 we're ready to take the square root of both sides, because now I'd like to get x by itself, so to undo a square we're going to take the square root. So if you took the square root of this side, the square root and the squared cancel, and you're left with x plus 4 equals, if you take the square root of this side, you've got to take the square root of that side. So this is going to be plus or minus square root of 25, which is 5. Okay, because remember, when you take the square root, there's two cases, a positive or a negative. And now we're ready to just finish solving, so we just need to get x by itself, so we're going to subtract the 4. So x equals positive or negative 5 minus 4. Now on this one, because these are both just numbers, we can reduce this out. Positive 5 minus 4, well that'll be positive 1. Or we have negative 5 minus 4, so that would equal negative 9. So your answers are positive 1 and negative 9. Okay. So that's the process of solving by completing the square. And again, I would normally not have solved this problem through this process because we could have factored and got the same answers much more quickly. But I thought we would start off with a problem where all the numbers came out extremely nicely. Okay? So on the second problem here, let's go through the process again. So first we want to make sure the coefficient of x squared is 1, and it is. Next we want to make sure the equation's in the form with the x squared and the x on the left side, whole number on the right side. And currently that's not the case. So this term here needs to come to the other side. So that's going to get us x squared plus 2x. Now recall that we're going to be coming up with a third term, so I'm going to leave a space there, and then that's going to equal, we have a negative 6 left over on the right hand side. Okay? So now we're ready to go ahead and complete the square. So we're going to take half of our middle term, our b, that's half of 2, and that gets you 1, and then we need to square that. So 1 squared gets you 1. So now we're going to add the 1 to this side, and whatever you do to this side, you're going to do to the other side. Okay? So this gets compensated for over there. Okay? Now we're ready to factor. Now again, this should factor extremely nicely. First term times itself has got to get to the first term, so that's x. Since both signs are positive, which they're not actually, that's a mistake, isn't it? So here, let's fix this mistake. This should be a minus. When this came over, it should be a minus. So since the last term's positive, but then the middle term's minus, this is a negative. And then what times itself gets you 1? That should be 1. Now this side we can clean up. Negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5. Okay. And now we're ready to take the square root. So we take the square root of this side. You're just left with x minus 1 equals, take the square root of this side. You get positive or negative square root of negative 5. And since we're taking the square root of a negative, we know that's going to be an imaginary number. So we'll simplify that in the next step. So now we just solve, we bring the 1 over, so x equals, this is going to be positive 1, plus or minus, now the negative comes out as an I, so this is I square root of 5. Okay? And recall we did the square root of negative 5 back in section 5.6. Okay? So that's the process of solving by completing the square. And you can see that this you would not have gotten through factoring. Okay?